All right, well, with that, if you're catching us on the replay, this is just a simple 20-second lead-in to let some ads play and do all that stuff for those people patiently waiting on the other side of the actual live stream who've been here right at 7 o'clock. And so if it is 7 o'clock and it is a Thursday, that means it's time for the Car Guy and SIXFAN show. I am your host, Grant Tommy. I am straight SIXFAN, which makes me SIXFAN of that equation, which means this fine-looking fella
is me. I'm the fine-looking fella. My name is Jason. I am the car guy of the Car Guy and SIXFAN show, guys. Welcome to the Car Guy and SIXFAN show. We keep forgetting to say, powered by Get Out and Drive podcast. The reason why we do that is because we're sharing a little bit of responsibility in promoting each other, that when we are doing the podcast over on Get Out and Drive, that we are promoting the Car Guy and SIXFAN show. Therefore, when we're over here, we want to promote them. So if you don't know who the Get Out and Drive podcast is, that's me and John Meyer. We've got that over there. I've just kind of been hired on, so to speak, to do that. It's podcasting. It's talking a lot about cars, interviewing a lot of great guys. And we've got a new episode dropping on Sunday. So make sure you head over to your favorite podcaster and download the Get Out and Drive podcast. New episode on Sunday.
Very good. And that means if you enjoy the talk tonight, you can keep the party going on your drive. You know, you can find it in most of your popular podcasting apps, the Get Out and Drive podcast. But if you're watching this again on the replay, in the description below, I will leave a link to the Get Out and Drive podcast as well, so you can navigate there. We'll take all the thinking out of it for you. And with that, I do also want to remind everybody in the chat, if you are joining us, go ahead and take a second and hit the share button, copy a link, go post it on one of your social media platforms, anyone you want. Get more people in here, the better the party is. And I think tonight's episode, we have something lined up for you that it's going to be pretty fun, pretty interactive, because this is a legacy episode. It is just the two of us talking. But before we kind of unveil what that is, Jason, why don't we see who has joined us in the chat tonight?
Absolutely. So right out of the gate, we've got Ryan over at Everything is Broken Garage. He's usually the first one in there. We've also got Will's Wheels, Jason Rock, Turlo's Garage. I think I saw Al Bolio, who is Big Al. We've also got Skagit Ed, and the Get Out and Drive guys are here. I think that is John. So thanks, John, for jumping in. And George from Nick's Garage is there, as well as Paul Meyer. Thanks, Paul, for being a part. Paul is kind of our production guy over at the Get Out and Drive podcast. Thanks, everyone, for joining. And Kip is here, at least for a few minutes. And that's a great lead in to what we're going to be talking about tonight, Grant.
Yeah, so we are taking a page from the Book of Kip, as I would say, America Bumper to Bumper, here on YouTube. And he used to do a standing Friday night live stream where he would peruse Facebook Marketplace, and it would almost crowdsource, really. He would open it up to the chat and say, give me a zip code, give me a budget, and we'd go through Facebook Marketplace and find different candidates, different opportunities, and this is what he called buy it or boot it. And so he'd kind of ask the crowd, well, would you buy it or would you move on from it? Jason, what else am I missing from the adventure? Did I pretty much cover it there?
I think you pretty much got it. And the big thing is the audience interaction. So you guys in the chat have really kind of got to help us decide what is a good purchase. And not only what's a good purchase, but we're going to critique the ads themselves a little bit. And that's one of the things that I really enjoyed about Kip's show when he did that was, like, look at this ad and would you buy the car or truck or whatever it is we're looking at based on the material given to you? The pictures, if there's any, and the description. Is this person really trying to sell what they've got up for sale?
And in addition to that, so as we all know, because imitation is the highest form of flattery, we do want to rip it off of Kip, but at the same time, we want to give him a little bit of respect and take our own personal spin on it, just as so much so that if you're used to Kip's format, we don't want to let you down, because we're going to intentionally not exactly try to follow his script, just in the fact, if there are any longtime fans here, you're not a little bit disappointed that we didn't do it the exact same way.
That's right. So guys, as we said before, in different shows, every time you come in to the Car Guy and SIXFAN show, please feel free to support us with a super chat. We're not begging for money by no means, but What we're trying to do is we're trying to give back to you, the viewers, those who support us and have supported us through 7 seasons of the Car Guy and Six Fan Show. And for every dollar spent in a super chat, we're going to put your name into a draw. Might do something very special at the end of the season, which is actually surprisingly and very scary. Coming up in just 5 weeks, we'll end season 7, but we got some great guests coming up. And I think it's time that we really jump right into tonight's Buy It or Boot It.
They all go so fast, the seasons of the Car Guy and Six Fan Show. But so bear with me for a second. So what Jason and I are going to do, I'm going to screen share here in a second. It's always easier to do with 2 monitors. I don't have 2 monitors, so I won't be able to see your comments in the chat while I screen share. But Jason and I have both selected 3 ads that we've predetermined and looked at. And I'm going to guess that Jason and I have a little bit different criteria that we set up. So with that, I guess I will just get started, and I will say the other. Well, okay, I'm already struggling. But here we go.
That's all right. We got Turlo's Garage supporting with $4.99. Make sure we mark that one down, and we'll mark it in for something special at the end of the season. And this year, we've kind of scheduled the seasons a little bit different. Ooh, that's freaky. A little bit different because our final episode or our final season will be, our final episode of this season will be the actual award show. And if you've been with the Car Guy and Six Fan Show for very long, you'll know that we have some fun with the award show at the end of the season. Grant, what do you got up there tonight?
Well, first off, is it looking good now? Is it not?
Yes.
Whole inception. Okay, so generally speaking, as you guys know, I am in the market for a new project vehicle, and so when I'm looking for a candidate, my criteria typically is, well, for one, it's got to be able to drive itself home because I don't have a trailer. So that's kind of a number one criteria. But in Facebook Marketplace, generally speaking, I've been punching in 100 miles from where I live. I filter it by because this is annoying on Facebook Marketplace that they let like power sports qualify as a vehicle. So I do actually put cars and trucks. It's my next filter. And then up to usually it's either 1986 or 1992, depending on what I feel like. So with that, this is one of the first ones that I've actually been eyeing this one for a while. Been actually somewhat considering this one, and I've talked about this before on the Car Guy and Six Fan Show from time to time. But I have this desire to take old grain trucks from the state of Kansas and turn them into rat rods, and I've always wanted to build a ramp truck, and so this one caught my eye, and it's also the same color as like the color of one of the ones that was in my family's possession, which was an International. This is a Ford F350, but anyway, the description is as such: 292 V8, hoist works, had it running last spring. It smokes and it needs brake work, so I'm really excited about that part. I have valve guide seals and valve cover gaskets for it. Could be a cool truck that you could put to work. 2,000 or best offer, but then he says bring a trailer. So if it's you, are you buying it? Are you booting it? Is this a worthwhile project vehicle for you out there if this was within 100 miles driving range of your home?
Well, if I can add my 2 cents on it, I know that your criteria is a little bit different than mine, with the fact that you simply want to be able to drive it home. And if he's saying bring a trailer, I'm okay with that because I have one. And if he was within 100 miles of where I live, it would definitely be worth going and hooking the trailer up and at least driving wherever it is to take a look at it. None of the work that that this fella has mentioned scares me by no means. It is a cool looking truck. I think it's got all the potentials and the makings of doing what you want to do with it. And I think that at the end of the day, this is something that, if it was what I was looking for, I'd be contemplating buying it. So it would get a buy for me. What say you in the chat, guys? Are we going to buy this 64 F350 or are we going to boot it?
And as you're monitoring the chat, and I'm sure you'll interject with what they're saying, Jason, I'll just fill the dead space briefly with. I mean, I think it is pretty cool that it's got a 292. I believe that's a Y block, and in some circles, that's kind of a rare kind of thing to get. I think T-Birds came with them originally or something, but I don't know. Maybe that's a way to get some of your money back, because I certainly would be swapping in I don't know, some other motor of some sort into this thing with a turbocharger on it. But what's the chat saying, Jason?
Well, I'm just looking over there, and Big Al says, sure, buy it. Ryan from Everything's Broken Garage says, buy. Who pays if we say buy it? Nick or George over at Nick's Garage is writing the checks tonight, folks, so don't worry about the dollars. We'll make sure that everything is good. And even Kip jumps in and says, buy. I think the consensus is, on this particular truck is that it's a buy truck. It's got all the makings of a good vehicle with very little work, I believe. Yeah, you got to do some brake work. And what was the price again? Was it $2,000?
$2,000.
Yeah, so $2,000 is not terrible. It's not throwaway money either. But I think with a little bit of TLC, this is something that potentially could drive home if it's something that you wanted to, get there, putter away at it before you make the trek. There's always that option too.
And I'll say things are a little bit different for me nowadays that, I did Project Low Fairmont, which was intentionally meant to be a budget build. And I was setting aside money for a long time to be able to fund that whole project. But now that I have a pile of cash sitting there after selling Project Low Fairmont, and now that I'm like 3-4 years in advance making more money, it wouldn't hurt me to line up some sort of trailer service to get this thing trailered somewhere. To temporarily store it or something, I don't know, maybe at mom and dad's house or something like that. While I get a bigger shop or something like that. But yeah, it just always hurts though too. It's like when you feel like you got a steal on a vehicle and then you pay a hefty tow bill on top of that, kind of spoils that. But
I do think we should take just a quick second to critique the ad. There's a lot of pertinent information in there, but only 3 pictures. I'd like to see pictures under the hood. I'd like to see pictures of the rocker panels, inside the doors, the floors, the dash, stuff like that is what I'd really like to see in an ad. 3 pictures don't do it for me. The description is sufficient, but I'd like to know a little bit more about the vehicle, and a great description is what's going to help sell this particular truck. One thing I do want to point out too is yeah, there's a lot of people in there saying, lowball them or make them an offer or this or that. This kind of isn't what we're trying to accomplish here with Buyer to Boot It. We're just trying to look at it and say, okay, is the asking price fair?
Or another way to look at it is like, is it priced at a point where it's going to be worth your time to drive 100 miles to potentially make an offer like they're describing, right? Like if he was asking $5,000, you're not even going to bother getting in the car to go haggle with him to try to get it for 1,800, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of where we're approaching this from. So we'll move on to the next one. And I self-admittedly, the Facebook Marketplace inventory is a little dry in my area of good candidates. But when I saw this ad, I couldn't pass it up. Because I do have a dream of not this era, but the body style before this. My dad had a 1984 Ford Ranger, which is what I learned to drive stick shift in, and it was a 2.2 liter Perkins diesel. So I always wanted to find like an 84, that same body style, and put like a Cummins 2.8 liter crate motor in it. So I am from time to time kind of always looking potentially at like an 80s Ranger project, but and at $50 as the listing price, which we'll find out is not necessarily accurate, it'll get me to click it at least, right? But the main,
it's got patina.
Yep, it's got patina. But the main reason why I wanted to share this one tonight was because, by God, this seller's description is fantastic. Truck got left at my house, runs on most of the cylinders, and by most, I mean 2 of them, so technically half. Shifts great if you know how to bang gears. Rust holes are factory located where they belong. No exhaust because if you want the neighborhood to know you drive a Ford effing Ranger. Tires are round and tread is present on some of it. Only one brake line is pinched off. No title because it's not mine. Cash is king. No low ballers. I know what I have. 1,000 or best offer.
Wow. Okay. I'm sold. I'm sold on the ad itself.
I did actually message the seller, and we had a good funny exchange. It's his buddy's truck that he could get the title for if really need be, but like it's his buddy's beater who he has $1,000 in it, he says, and really his friends, like, somebody's gonna have to like come take it from him because it's just a good, reliable, in case my daily driver breaks down, I drive this thing kind of vehicle.
Oh, rust holes in the factory locations. I like that.
So, so I guess, I mean, am I seriously really asking buy it or boot it? No, I guess I'm not, but I couldn't not share this one. So, Jason, I'm just kind of curious what the chat's saying as as I narrated that.
Big Al says he's passed, but great sales pitch. Kip is laughing out loud several times. I think if we somebody says rallycross the vehicle, and of course Ryan at Everything's Broken Garage, he's into dieseling everything, so he's into a diesel swap on that one. Love the ad, really love the ad. Well, let's just throw it out there, okay, guys. Let's assume there's a title, okay, so there's no complication with that. Guys asking $1,000 or best offer. Do you buy it or do you boot it? Let's see what the chat has to say. I'm interested to see if anybody's interested in this POS.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from what I see between the two pictures, I'm not shelling out $1,000 for this. Like, you know, like I said, when I saw $50, it's like, maybe I will make this Cummins dream swap come true. You know, at $50, how can you afford not to? But yeah, no, it's. And even like I would say, you know, the surface rust doesn't bother me, but you know, the factory located rust in the fenders. Like,
yeah, well, one thing that I think that is key here is, yes, the description is funny. It got your attention, but if he is serious about selling the truck for $1,000, let's get more pictures. Let's see those factory located rust holes, the patina, the interior, all that stuff, engine bay. Let's find out what's on it for tires, how much tread's left, or at least what they look like. But it kind of brings me back to the first interaction that I had on the Get Out and Drive podcast. Is John and I were talking about patina, and is patina ever going to be a thing on a Fox body Mustang? Well, if the popularity of Fox body Mustangs is what it is, well, these Ford effing Rangers are right there with it. So I think that patina on a Ford Ranger, that could sell to somebody someday. So, but anyways, I'm looking at the chat, and a lot of guys are saying no, that they're going to have to pass on this one, and I would have to agree, I guess.
All right. Well, then we'll move on to my final choice, and I did, just because this was a new, fresh one on Facebook Marketplace when I opened up tonight. That wasn't on there last night, and you know, since AI and algorithms are such that they know what you like, it is beyond my the $6,000 range that I usually plug in. It's listed at $7,000, but a 1977 Ford Maverick, and you know, when the first picture is this one, and you see how pristine it looks, it's like, I got to take a look at least. So we'll go through the pictures real fast, and still like what I see. But then I realized it's a 4-door.
It's a 4-door.
I would love to do. I would build a 4-door, and I would build a Ford Maverick, but for some reason I can't stand 4-door Ford Mavericks. I can't tell you why that exactly is, but it's got an inline 6. But check out this interior.
Interior's mint.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of potential here. It checks a lot of my boxes for what I'm looking for in a project car. But we'll go over to the description real fast. And here's another kind of similar to the last one, right? So you listed at 7,000, but then in the first line of the seller's description, 1977 Ford Maverick 4-door, 12,000 or best offer. Make me an offer. Can I make you an offer? I am listing this for my brother. Runs and drives great. Only mechanical issues are the power steering leaks and the air compressor. AC is bad. Have the replacement parts. Car has minimal rust. Also comes with additional parts. Contact for additional information. So with that, you know, are you going to get in your car to drive 100 miles away for a $7,000 price tag, only to come to find out it's really a 12,000? I mean, I'm definitely going to be asking some questions before I jump in the car to come look at it. But I guess I'll turn it over to you, Jason, and you can ultimately turn it over to chat. But buy it or boot it.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the chat. One of the first things I see is too many doors. One of the things that makes the Ford Maverick so ugly are those bumpers. They stick out like a fat lip. They definitely have some room for improvement there. The two-tone blue is not doing it for me. I'm not even sure a set of wheels and some tinted windows would make that cool. The 6-cylinder is probably the anemic 200. It's not going to be very powerful. Might be good on fuel though. I just don't know if there's much customization there without a complete paint and body work. $7,000, even if that is the price, I'm not into it for $7,000. I'm going to say that I would have to boot it. George over at Nick's Garage says it's a grandpa car. Let's see. The comment is in the wrong place. Yeah, I would have to agree with that. $1,200 and way too high price for even at $7,000. So yeah, I think the common goal here, or the common answer here, is that likely is a boot it. So what say you, chat? Are you going to buy it or boot it for $7,000? And Mexican Spec has joined the chat too.
In all I guess I'll devil's advocate this a little bit, even though I'm not interested in the car. The things it has going for it is I've always loved the hoods on these. I like the kind of like, I don't know, this isn't the true grabber hood, but it's got the taller profile right at the front nose, and then it kind of tapers back, like a nice aggressive looking body lines. The bumper issue, Jason. So Mavericks, I think they start making them in 70. I think they went 70 to 77. And 70 to 72, they had really tight bumpers. So the bumper's easy to actually fix as long as you get your hands on a 70 to 72 bumper. That'll clean that up real fast. But yeah, otherwise I agree with you and everybody else. I'm still probably not going to do it.
Excuse me. Now that you point out that hood, I mean, if a fellow was going to do a complete, customized bodywork on that thing, that is a great opportunity to cut some some ram air style scoops into the front of that, lower it down, but keep the hump. Maybe it even gives you more room for a bigger hump and a bigger motor, like a 300 with a turbo or something.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's another thing that's working against it is I probably wouldn't, like, I couldn't overcome the 4 doors and all the things we talked about. If it had a V8 in it, I probably could. If it had a 302 in it, that I could do some of the same tricks I did on Project Low Fairmont, get some pretty decent power pretty quickly. All of those things combined, yeah, bad composite score.
Well, I'm going to try and find the ones that I've got going here, and we'll share those, and we'll talk a little bit about them. So, excuse me. In my search, not only was I looking for potential project trucks, but I'm also looking for potential project vehicles that Grant might be looking for, because obviously he's in the market. So when I stumbled upon this 1956 International, it was the bright red, or faded red, I guess, that kind of draw my attention into this truck. But as we kind of scroll through the 6 pictures that it has, it is what looks to be possibly a 3-ton truck, or I don't know, maybe 5-ton. I don't know what they called it back then. But it has the big deck on the back. You could make a ramp truck out of it. It's even got the tractor maybe to push it around the yard. I don't know. The floorboards, these are pictures that I like to see. They open up the door. They show you the floorboards. There's still paint on the floorboards, and they look like they're still solid on this particular truck. We click over to the other picture. You're showing the underside of the doors, the drain holes in for the water. Looks like they might be getting plugged, but they're still clean. There's still paint on them. Weather stripping is still there. And as we go back to the passenger side, you see the back of the open door. Everything looks like it's where it should be. I got some fresh green grass growing up. That must be from last year. And according to the Odo, you've got 49,602 miles. Being a farm truck, that's probably not too far out of reach. And we're back to the original picture. If we go over to the description, it says, I have a 1956 International S160. I bought it in Alberta a few years ago. So in Canada, Alberta is like the Texas or the South for buying vehicles. They're generally pretty clean. I put new wheel cylinders and master cylinder on it. They will need to be bled. It will run and drive, but not right now. Well, that's fun. It will need to be towed. The registration is in my name. So again, got a little bit of a brake issue. Doesn't recommend driving it, but it will drive even without brakes. So that one's got some potential, Grant. He's asking $7,500 Canadian. And if we actually do the math on the exchange is roughly 28%. So 7,500 divided by 1.28, that's $5,850 US. What do you think?
58.50. So the pile of cat. I mean, yeah, I would be going. It wouldn't stop me from going to look at it. That's for sure at that price. But that is really at a. I guess around here, I know I can get something in similar shape for cheaper than that, for sure. But it is a really clean truck. I really do like, and this is where it's this is exactly what the appeal to seeking out these old grain trucks is, because they're used twice a year for 2 different harvests, and then they're put in the garage or the shed for the rest of the year. So you get something from 1956 in this good a shape, as long as you didn't accidentally run into the combine when the brakes failed rolling into the wheat field. Like, they generally don't even have body damage on them either. So this one's a tough one for me. I think I boot it, but barely.
But barely. Yeah, because it's at the top of your budget. It still doesn't drive as far as being able to get it home. One thing I did too, guys, I forgot to mention, is that I put into the description kind of the same criteria as far as distance goes. I put about 150 miles. So this one is located about 70 miles away from where I live, so it's not that much of a trek. However, it is a huge truck. It's definitely not something that I'm going to load up onto my 18-foot car trailer. It's going to take a lot more than that to run it. You probably have to get a bigger trailer with the big wide wheels in the back. It's going to overhang. You could be over width. You're running into some situations with getting it home, even if it is just 60 miles away. What's the chat saying, Grant?
Mechanics says 5,600 didn't seem like a bad price to him. The Mexican Spec's been talking kind of about how for him he's been looking at things but including shipping. We're not necessarily figuring that into our exercise tonight, but and George over at Nick's Garage is saying kind of a similar thing. Just too big of a project for them, in an impractical being in the city. And yeah, this would be an impractical project car for me at the moment in my current shop. But if I have my next shop, I would definitely take on a project of this scale for sure. I did want to say, on as far as the ad goes though, Jason, I do appreciate kind of the narrative where like he's actually telling a story more than just trying to be face value about things. I don't know. I tend to like that stuff. I know some people get bored and lost in it, and then they end up asking you the question that was like in the third sentence, the answer was, but I appreciate someone who actually took the time to tell the story about what it is for sale.
Yeah, so I guess we're going to toss this over to the chat, guys, and let us know. I see one boot in there already, but is this something that you're going to buy, or are you going to buy it, or are you going to boot it? I want to make sure I get the terminology in there, because that's kind of the name of our show tonight. I guess for me, I'm with you, Grant. It's probably not something that I would turn myself away from going to look at, because if it is the right vehicle, then I got to factor in how am I getting it home, which to some degree at this point is likely going to be a cost involved, because I can't bring it home myself on my own trailer. So I've got to either borrow, rent, get somebody with a flatbed that can haul something like this. There's an extra expense in there for sure.
It looks like, I mean, Turlo's Garage says boot it. Nobody else has necessarily said buy or boot. But our friend Ken from Wayland Wires Old Iron has dropped in. So kind of perfect timing. We're maybe going right up his alley with some potential project vehicles. So Jason, you want to move on to the next one?
Yep. So I don't know if I'm able to do this just by clicking across the top. How do I do this?
Or do I need to take screen share down for a second while you?
Well, Yeah, yeah. I'm pretty green at something, so it's down now. So we'll go back to a screen share and pop up the next one here. So we want Chrome tab, and we want to go to this beautiful 1974 Mustang 2. So this is a 1974 Mustang. They're asking $1,900 for it, and they've only got 3 pictures, so it's basically the front, the rear, and kind of a side. And the interior looks like it used to be yellow at one point in time. I can almost see a little bit of blistering down there in the rocker panel. The interior looks like it's pretty much trash as far as the console. Let's take a look at the description. Description says, thinking about selling a car I bought for a project. It's a 74. It doesn't have papers, but would be easy to get. Well, then why don't you get them and then place it up for the ad? Doesn't have an engine or a transmission in it. Well, there. No papers, no engine, no transmission. Well, how much are you going to pay me to take it, sir? Anyway, $1,900 is the price for a shell. And again, like I said, we're only getting 3 pictures there. I think I know where this one's going. But Grant, what do you think?
So I would build a Mustang too if it was the right one. But my whole thing with offbeat hot rodding, why I am drawn to it, is I feel like if you're willing to take a little less than desirable platform, you have a better chance of finding one in good shape. And this one is not in good shape, right? So it doesn't have a motor, transmission. You can see somebody's hack job, paint job, like how much more paint's going to flake off outside of the door sills and things like that. Although it is a light enough car that it wouldn't be, out of the question that my Toyota Tacoma could probably lug home if I really wanted it. But again, I would rather be finding one in much better shape that could drive under its own power. Even if it had that anemic 2.3 liter Lima motor in it, I'd rather have that than this. How about yourself, Jason?
Yeah, I look at this from a couple of different perspectives. So if the car is actually in good shape, so if I was in the market for a Mustang 2 and I wanted to go look at one of these cars, okay, this one $1,900, I'm at least going to go look at it because I want to know exactly what I'm up against. I don't care about the motor and trans because I'm probably going to throw something different in it anyway. Let's see if the body of the shell is worthy of making that commitment to dropping something, 250, 300 horsepower or more. Let's go look at it. So for $1,900, I'm scratching my head, but I definitely want to see it. And again, it's a car that I do have the means to bring home. This one is located in Hamwell, so it's only about 55 miles away. Not that bad. You can get there pretty quick, and hit it up on a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon.
So according to the chat, it's probably about an 8-to-1 ratio at minimum that says boot it. Our friend Not to Get Out and Drive podcasts are saying get it, but almost everybody else is saying boot it. I did want to make mention of Everything is Broken Garage. It says all you need is one wiper blade and one brand new 1974 Mustang 2 to fix your problems. So I think that's well put.
Yeah, and I think that this is, again, we're going back to almost the same thing that we looked at with the four-door Maverick. Is what is your intended goal for the project? This one here is almost a clean slate. Let's assume for a second the car is in really good condition and worthy of a heart transplant. Are you going to continue to drive it in its current form? I mean, look at it. It's the paint's peeling off everywhere. This is what gets me. The fact that it used to be yellow, maybe there's some primer down there in the doors too. I don't know if that's beneath or above the yellow. I don't know. But at the end of the day, you got to look at it and say, how far am I willing to go? This car, if you're going to do it, is probably going to have to be a nut and bolt restoration. Again, you want to make sure that it's good enough to hold the horsepower that you're going to throw at it. Yeah, $1,900. I guess you got to decide how far you're going with it.
Yeah, if it was like factory original paint, that it was really the grandma car that these things typically were, and someone had bought it and yanked the old motor out and hadn't got around to putting the new one in. If it was that kind of roller, yeah, I'd maybe seriously consider that. But no, not there. I did want to mention a comment that we had earlier. Mexican spec was asking Jason, so it was kind of in the tune of when the seller says, "Hey, it's going to be easy. It's easy to get a title or the papers." So he was just kind of asking in generally, how hard is it to get papers in Canada?
So I mean, I've never really had to deal with it as far as, I mean, I'm a used car dealer, so sometimes it's tough enough to get the registrations or the papers for cars that do have them. But if you're placing an ad and you're telling me your car has no papers, click.
Yeah.
Seriously, I'm clicking off to the next one, because unless you've got it ready to sell so that I can put it in my name, I'm not interested. I'm not going to do all the legwork for you, because you're probably the third owner in line who never bothered to get paperwork. So you got to go track 2 or 3 guys behind you. No, I'm not interested in that at all. And so I guess the simple answer to answer his question is it can be difficult. If you don't know who the previous owner was, or you intended to get the registration, maybe the previous owner died, who knows? There's so many different things. In the States, there's a couple of issues. There's a couple of ways around some of that. Some states you can just go apply for a new title or new papers. Some states you can't. But in Canada, at least where I am, if papers aren't there, I ain't buying.
Yeah, and I know if our friend Chad from Nobody's Auto was on, he could kind of explain. I know because I've asked him here in Kansas, because I was trying to find. I found an International that was the exact year of my family's wheat truck, but it was the half-ton version, but it didn't have a title. But there's some sort of cutoff for years. Like if a car is 50 years old or older or something here in Kansas, they will allow you to basically just get an antique bill of sale from the owner. And then you can take basically more or less turn that in, go to the DOT, get a highway patrolman does a VIN inspection. And between those two things, it's pretty easy to get. But yeah, there was a truck down in Tulsa, Oklahoma that couldn't drive on its own, that didn't have a title. And so again, it's like when you start stacking these things up, it's like, who am I kidding? This isn't worth my time. Jumping through one of the 4 hoops, fine. But 4 in a row, it's like, yeah, no.
All right, so we're going to do the last one, and I don't think I would be doing this show any justice if I wasn't sharing a square body Chevy truck. So here we have what they're claiming to be an 87, but those who know your square body trucks knows this is an 80, at least an 80, which I can tell by the headlights, but it's an 80 or older. It's not an 87. So someone's got the numbers wrong there, I believe. Even though they advertise it as an 87, and in the description they say it's an 87, maybe they just converted some body panels. $7,500 is what they're asking for this truck, advertising it as 99,000 kilometers, so about 60,000 miles. And as we scroll through this red, white, and blue Freedom square body, there's a lot here that begs me to ask, why is the door cracking? It's got to be full of Bondo. That's why. Come on. We've got some box lines here. The pinstripe does not line up the whole way back from the door to the cab to the box. The square gas filler on the passenger side leads me to believe that the box is into the 80s, because in the 70s, most of them had round gas doors there, or not even gas doors, just the cap. It's a GMC. I saw a GMC on there somewhere. Yeah, right up there on the collar at the cab, it says GMC. Again, advertised as a Chevrolet. Cab corners are rotten. Fenders are rotten. More giant hunks of Bondo in the back back fender there. That one actually looks pretty good. From a distance from 60 miles an hour, you probably wouldn't notice any of this stuff. But as the Ford Ranger stated, you've got rust holes in all the factory locations. on a square body. Fenders rotten out over the front here as well. And lots of great pictures, though. From this angle, you can see that the front fender by the headlight looks like it's been damaged. It does have some plow rigging on it for plowing snow, which tells me this truck has probably met the end of its life at some point. And someone said, let's use it as a yard plow truck. So it's never going to see the road again. But yeah, I question the authenticity of the year of the truck. Somebody has added a 1980 grill to it, or it's a hodgepodge of vehicles. Let's look at the description. 1987 Chevy 4x4 with an 80 front GMC clip. There we go. That answers that. Started to fix it up, but needs to sell to pay for house repairs. Isn't that too bad? Needs some work, but great project. Comes with a 7.5-foot Fisher plow. Well, there you go. So if you're in the snow belt, you're going to get a plow. You're buying a business here, folks. You get trades of equal value considered asking $7,500. So the explanation of the front clip has been answered. Not only are you getting the truck, you're getting the plow. So in our neck of the woods, any plow is worth $3,000 in Canadian money. So at $7,500, you're getting a plow included in that. So you're kind of buying a business. And again, at $7,500, divide that by 28%, you're looking at same price, $5,800, $5,850 for a square body with a built-in business. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for me, I mean, it's a little different for me, obviously, because of, like you mentioned, it's pretty easy to turn a truck that already has a snowplow on it into a business up where you're at. Not so much down where I'm at. You only probably get it out 3 times a year or something, 3, 4. It depends on the year, really. But I do appreciate that they did take the pictures of the cracking Bondo, because you can already draw your conclusions by looking at the picture, as opposed to, if they excluded these, you might be inclined to drive that 100 miles to come look at it, and then like as soon as you get out of your car, see that and be like, I just drove all that way for this, and then it was interesting as you were talking about the things you're picking up on, Jason, that it's a different front clip and all stuff. Well, again, they put it in the description, so they're being pretty transparent about it and pretty straightforward about it. But in the chat, it looks like most people are saying pass on it. Ken is telling us to check for burn areas under the hood, which I don't know if that means it's because he potentially owned the vehicle at one point in time, or if
if you go back and watch his last video, you'll know why he's talking about that.
Okay.
Oh, shoot. So yeah, like Chevy guys, or I shouldn't say just Chevy guys, but square body guys are going to know exactly what to look for when they're going to look for these trucks. So there's not going to be any surprises. He's showing you all the rust. He's showing you all the defects. $7,500. We talked about this again on the Get Out and Drive podcast, that, the price on square body trucks and C10s is just ridiculous, because one goes through Barrett Jackson and sells for a couple $100,000. Everybody thinks theirs is worth 10 times the price now. Yes, price on trucks and cars and project vehicles is gone through the roof, but at the end of the day, you really got to look at what you're buying. This truck ain't no $7,500 truck. It comes from Nova Scotia. Anybody from the Maritimes who knows that Nova Scotia vehicles are generally quite a bit rustier than everywhere else. But at the end of the day, for $7,500, yeah, absolutely, I'm going to pass on this. This is probably at best, even with the plow, it's probably a $4,500 truck. But I'm not in need of a plow truck at this moment, so I'm going to pass. And like you said, mostly everybody in the chat is kind of saying the same thing. But I do appreciate the description with the explanation, as well as the barrage of pictures.
Well, that concludes the 6 candidates that Jason and I found, and so I guess I'm just kind of curious to hear from the chat. What would be some of the ideas you guys have for me for the next project car? Because this is what's always been fun. I say fun and kind of roll my eyes when I say that. For me on my channel is whenever I would mention that I was planning on selling the Fairmont, everybody's like, what's next, Grant? What are you? And my response was always like, well, it's going to be market driven. Like, I'm not like going to hold out for any one certain. Everybody knows I'm a Ford guy, but if the right G body came along or something, I would probably pick one of those up. It's just the criteria is more about, can I avoid doing paint and body? Check. Then that's got me interested. Is it something unique? Check. Some of you may have known or not known. I went and looked at a 1979 AMC Spirit a few weeks ago, but when I got there, I saw more rust and body rot than what the pictures led on. So that's kind of the inspiration for this episode. But I'd just be kind of curious to see what the chat would say if I could do any project for you guys that's within my brand. What would you be interested in, I guess?
Well, and I think too, there's got to be a couple things that come into play as far as what it is you're looking for and what your intended goal is at the end of the day. So if your goal is to find something that is market driven or YouTube algorithm driven, what's going to draw a crowd? Are you doing something different with it that nobody else is doing? Is it just going to be a quick flip to gain a bigger budget for the next one? These are things that you got to take into consideration. I see a lot of people throwing up the G-body idea. I think G-bodies are great. There's still a great market up here. There's not very many of them left that are in any kind of shape. And I think there's so much potential with them because some of them, had so much potential with that 3 liter or the 3.8 liter V6. Some of them you could get, stuff a V8 in there, no problem. And with everybody LS swapping the world, why not? You can get a lot of power out of a fairly light vehicle, and they're just like square body trucks. The parts, the aftermarket parts, are readily available. I guess one more thing I want to add to that is, again, you just got to find out what your end goal is when it comes to doing that. Are you buying a project vehicle just for the sake of working on something, or is there a goal in mind to keep it for a long period of time, to do X amount of work to it, flip it, make some money? I guess that's my advice to anybody looking for a project vehicle. If you're a YouTuber, or if you're Grant, if you're listening to what I'm saying, is I guess you got to set what that end goal is for you with a project car.
I did just get a text message from our buddy Chad, who must be watching. He's just not commenting in the chat that he's got a brown Pacer in his yard, and he says he should do the brown Pacer. But no, I want to go back to Mexican Spec. Had asked the question, and he says, well, Grant, do you want one that's easy to find parts, or do you want a challenge? And so that's a good question. And then there was also somebody else had said something else, it seemed like. But what I was ultimately going to get at is, when I bought Project Low Fairmont, I had put together a criteria list for me, like the project car musts. And it was like basically 10 questions. And if I answered, if it was an 8 or above, right? If it scored an 8 or above, it was like, dude, you shouldn't have to think about it. Just buy the thing.
Yeah, just go.
And in Project Low Fairmont, actually, I think it scored an 8 or a 9, and I walked away from it after I test drove it the first time, and then I came back home and went through that list. I was like, "Oh, you idiot! Like, why'd you walk away from that?" And so one of the criteria on that list is, are aftermarket parts easy to come by? So I'm not going to specifically answer your question, because you could score an 8 out of 10 on this list, and that could be one of the no's, right? Like, but I think it'd be worth it if it checked all these other boxes. You know what? I'll take a gamble on something that's hard to find parts for it. And ultimately, that's like this AMC Spirit. That was one of the reasons why, if the body's not pristine like I wanted it to be, and the price point this guy was at, and all these other things, and I started pricing out what a 232 inline 6 build was going to be, and it was just stupid. Like, I thought the AMC inline 6, the 258 and 232 were popular enough that like a 4-barrel Clifford manifold or whatever, Offenhauser, would be decently priced. Intake manifolds were like $600, and it's like, I decided I could be like 2 speed parts in and have dropped like $900. And it was like, yeah, sorry, hard pass. But
Well, and I think I saw another question in there too. I think Casey had said it. Maybe I missed it. He's asking if this would be the home for the Ford 6-cylinder. So you can answer this, Grant, but I think the answer is no. I think the Ford 6-cylinder is something that might be a project somewhere down the line, but maybe not specifically for this next project.
I think, yes.
There you go.
No, the F350 on Marketplace, like I think I could see myself throwing the 300 in there in my ramp truck, but that was never necessarily my original dream. It was for something else. But yeah. Generally speaking, how should I say this? My next short-term project car is not going to be the 300 inline six. 300 inline six will be a long-term project.
So I think we're getting close to an hour. We're at 50 minutes, and we've not talked about anything that's up and coming and what's new or anything like that. So Grant, why don't we talk a little bit about what the folks can expect from Straight SIXFAN in the upcoming episode?
Yeah, well, speaking of 300 inline sixes, last Saturday I went and pulled that out of my high school truck, my 1995 Ford F-150, and so I've put together. Got plenty of. I came down with 3 batteries and two cameras and 3 batteries, and I feel like I got pretty good footage for the most part. I will tell you, like when it came down to the final stretch, I just basically clipped my camera to the fender and just hit record and let it just keep going. Right as soon as we were getting really close to the money shot, it told me either my memory card filled up or the battery shut down or something. But it was like the final payoff, like. Of finally finishing, of course, something like that happened. But Jason, what's coming up on Old Car Guy?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I've been telling you guys about the power steering on the Monaco, how we're trying to get that finished up, and it just seems to be running problem after problem with trying to find the right hose. We did manage to get the power steering pump mounted in the vehicle, not after a few troubled times, but nevertheless, it's in there. So all we're trying to figure out is getting the hose. The right hose. We got 2 of them here. One of them has the proper end for the pump. The other one has the proper end for the box. We're going to try and make 1 hose out of 2 in some fashion. So that is a video that's been ongoing because we've been running into troubles. I keep recording little bits every time we work on it. Just can't come to that final piece of it. So that will be something that's coming up really quick. We've got a Panther platform video coming up on Grandma. But there's lots going on right now around the shop. Things have been busy. Great. Yeah. Yahoo. First time in a couple of years that we've actually been real busy around the shop. So that's been taking up a lot of my time, and we're taking a few days off here over the next couple of days. So we'll try and get a video up for you guys, hopefully by first of the week. And we'll go from there, see how that plan pans out. Go ahead.
I was just say it's funny you say it like that because I remember a couple of weeks ago you talked about you should have shot that video of how to clean up, we'll call it late 90s, early 2000s Ford column shifters. And wouldn't you know, my parents' farm truck, the 94 F-150, it fell victim to that really bad. And I was like, I kept telling my mom, like, it's easy to do. I just don't exactly know what to look for at the moment because I was waiting for that video. But my older brother found one on YouTube, and he got him hooked up because Dad couldn't start the truck because it wasn't actually in park, and it wasn't. But got that all fixed. But Shopcat Industries had asked, and so I'll just address this up front, I guess. So Grant, are you going to buy the flatbed Ford? I want those mirrors. I would say 40% chance that I buy that truck. If I can get the carcass of my high school truck hauled off from Mom and Dad's like ASAP. Technically, the pasture behind their house is part of the trust, and I am a trust owner, so I feel like I could store the truck on the other side of the fence, and they could use it. We wouldn't have to title it or insure it or anything, and they could use it in the pasture, for the farm duties they need to. So that would be kind of the, price of rental, right? Like, let me park it here, but you guys can drive it with bad brakes and smoky 292 V8.
Well, see, my question to that would be, how many acres are there? Because, anyways, Sorry.
You just want me to compete with Chad.
Yeah,
is what you're
right.
saying.
Yeah, Kansas's very own. Yeah, and I think that it's going to be a great plan. Whatever it is that you do decide to buy. Of course, Grant confides in me and some questions and asks him this and that once in a while, and I try and steer him down a really long, dark, lonely path sometimes, and he refrains from listening to me. But nevertheless, I'm excited to find out what it is that project ends up being. I'm sure something will come to fruition here within the next little while. But either way, I think it's going to be a great project, whatever it is, whether it's the truck, whether it's a pacer, whether it's a whatever. Be nice to see what's going to go on your channel.
Jason does know about one more candidate that was not shown tonight, and let me just say this: it's still an ongoing saga, Jason. Like, I guess real quick, just short tease for the chat. Like, I've been dialoguing with a seller, but they just won't answer very basic questions. And when they do respond to me finally, like, I get excited, only to find out they still are like not giving me prudent information I need. For instance, like when to meet them, where to meet them, things like that.
Can we meet?
Can we meet? So anyway, I might look at that this weekend. I don't know. I know the town it's in, but I have no idea where it's at.
So having said all that, guys, I do want to remind you one more time that the Car Guy and Six Fan Show is powered by the Get Out and Drive podcast. And we do have a new episode of that podcast dropping on Sunday, where we actually got to interview a picture car coordinator, Norman Altizer. And he's pretty informative. He had lots of great stories to tell about how some vehicles work behind the scenes of movies, how he gets them, all that great stuff. So you're going to want to tune into that. Very informative, and it's my first official interview on the Get Out and Drive podcast. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that. Hopefully you guys will take some time out on your way to work or on a Sunday afternoon to just sit down, download that episode and listen. We had a lot of fun. So don't forget, Get Out and Drive podcast helps this show, and we are trying to help them as well.
And another reminder, Car Guy and Six Fan Show is a joint operation, so that means next week it is on Jason's channel. And so with that, as is the custom here on the Car Guy and Six Fan Show, co-host that has sign-off duties, so I'm going to hit the mute button and take it away, Jason.
Yeah, so next week it's on my channel. We've got a very special guest, Steve Fast from Hammer Down Motorsports. I met Steve a couple summers ago when I took my trip to Pennsylvania. We got lots to talk about, and he's pretty excited to be a part of the Car Guy and Six Fan Show. So that's next week over on my channel. We're going to end this by saying thank you to everybody in the chat for all your great comments. We hope to see you again next week. Stay focused on the windshield, not the rearview mirror. Let's do it again soon.